Houston had served in the Great War. He was one of those people inspired by Du Bois, who told black people to do what? Right, close ranks. Remember, serve shoulder to shoulder with your white fellow Americans. And like Du Bois, he had thought, if we go fight bravely, show how much we love America, it will help us get our rights. And instead, they got the Red Summer. Right? Instead of coming back from the war and getting their rights, they came back and were met by all that violence of the Red Summer. And Houston felt, just like Du Bois, like he had been tricked, lied to, manipulated. And Houston resolved after the Red Summer that he would never fight for this country again. Never. Instead, he was determined to devote the rest of his life to fighting for equality in his country. So I won't fight for this country, I'm going to fight for equality in this country. So after the war, Houston got himself into Harvard Law. Harvard Law School. And of course, this is remarkable for the same reason Du Bois getting his PhD from Harvard was remarkable. It's Harvard. There he is with his law school class at Harvard. You see him? Back row. Houston finished at the top of his Harvard law class. And remember, just like Du Bois, this is so incredible because you have gone to the place where supposedly the best minds in America go. And then when you finish at the top there, that's a pretty great reflection on people who look like you, right? After getting his law degree from Harvard, Houston took a position at Howard, right down in Washington, D.C. And soon, Houston became the dean of the Howard Law School. And starting in the 1920s, and then really going on for the next 25 years, Charles Hamilton Houston built Howard's Law School into a quality, top-notch American law school. And who went there? Only black people. Right. So Howard was an all-black school with a top-notch law school. And Howard, over the next 25 years, would then be the primary training ground for a whole generation of black lawyers. The black lawyers who filed the lawsuits of the 1950s and 60s, most of them were trained at Howard. Many of them by Charles Hamilton Houston. Who needs great lawyers? The NAACP, right? So the NAACP brought Houston in as their litigation director. That was his title with the group. Litigation director. Litigation. 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 I should probably do that, I suppose. Litigation director, what does that sound like he does? What is litigation?
He writes the laws.
Lawsuits. Right. So it really means that Houston really sets the NAACP's legal strategy. Houston decides which cases to take and which ones to turn down. He really sets the NAACP's legal strategy. Houston is sometimes called the father of black law because he trained so many other talented black lawyers. Anybody know who his most talented pupil of his career was? He's later becomes the first black Supreme Court justice. Thurgood Marshall was trained by Charles Hamilton Houston. And so we haven't really gotten to Thurgood Marshall yet. He'll come back later on. We're just trying to point out here, for those of you who know Thurgood Marshall, that it really goes back to Houston. Also in the 20s, Marcus Garvey came to America and built the biggest movement of black Americans in all of American history. I'm going to say that again, because that is still true today. And we are, 90 years past Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey came to America and built the biggest organization of black Americans ever in American history. I mean, even to today, there's been no organization of black Americans bigger than what Garvey did.
He was born here?
No. He came to America.
Oh.
He was born in 1887 in Jamaica. In Jamaica, Garvey tried to establish the organization that he'd become famous for in America. It was in Jamaica that Garvey first tried to found the UNIA. That's right here. The Universal Negro Improvement Association. Universal Negro Improvement Association. The UNIA. UNIA. Universal Negro Improvement Association. So Garvey's first attempt to start this group was while he was still in Jamaica in 1914. But in Jamaica, the group never really took off. He couldn't really get people excited to join it. So in 1916, Garvey packed up and moved to America. Where would you set up base from in America if you wanted to organize black people? Harlem. Right. So Garvey sets up his base in Harlem in 1916. Yeah. Sets up his base in Harlem in 1916. And from there, over the next years, the UNIA grew to have millions of members. The exact number has always been fought about, first between Garvey and his opponents, and now by historians, who fight about what the real number of members was. Here's what I can tell you. Garvey said he had 5 million members. His opponents, who hated him, said he had 2 million. So I don't know. Why don't we split the difference? Call it 3.5 million. But the thing is, even if it's 2 million, it's still the biggest organization of black Americans in American history. The UNIA had really a 3-part agenda. And the first part of Garvey's agenda was to counter the kind of crap you see here. These were postcards. Not nearly as heinous as those lynching postcards, but these were postcards built on white supremacy. And they were incredibly popular among white Americans. And you can see what they all try to do, which is make fun of black speech, as though they can't speak properly. I sure does wish yo all would write, honey. And these kind of ridiculous mockeries of what black people look like. Degrading images of black people were used to sell dozens of products in American society. The Gold Dust Twins, Aunt Jemima syrup, Uncle Ben's rice, Uncle Remus syrup.
What are those little things that people put in their lawn?
Little lawn jockeys. That's kind of an offshoot of this same movie. So these kind of things were everywhere in American society. And think about, I feel like I say twisted a lot in this class, but it's pretty twisted that advertisers figured out white people will want to buy this product if we degrade black people on the front of it. That is twisted. But advertisers saw that it worked. And so there were dozens of products that marketed themselves this way. And of course, the remnants of this are still in your grocery store, right? With Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. They are the remnants of this. They have put Aunt Jemima into, like, she's like a late 20th century housewife now, but she's still Aunt Jemima. So buy the Hungry Jack. That's what I'm saying.
I just have a question for Uncle Ben. Does it belong like to like a black family?
No.
White people are running it.
Yeah. It's not like there's really an Uncle Ben. The whole idea of uncle and aunt is what white people used to call their elderly servants. So Aunt Jemima is the woman who fixes you food.
Like Uncle Tom's Cabin.
That's right, yeah. So Aunt Jemima is central to this. And so this is what Aunt Jemima used to look like. And so Aunt Jemima went through a whole series of iterations over the years. It's actually a great little book called Slave in a Box, which is about the history of Aunt Jemima as a character and a marketing tool. All right, so you get the idea. This stuff was everywhere, right? And so Garvey said in response to all this, you have to be proud of your race. You have to be proud of the color of your skin. Don't let everything American society says to you be real to you, because it's not. You should be proud of your skin and proud of where your ancestors came from. Wait a second. What's he saying you should be proud of then?
Who you are.
You should be proud of Africa. And that was pretty radical in America. Because what did most Americans, even lots of black Americans, know about Africa? They knew, right, in quotes, because it's really not true, they knew that it was barbaric and savage, and over there in Africa, they chased people with spears, and they put them in big pots and cook them up and eat them. I saw it in a movie, right? So that's the kind of crap that people said. So central to what Garvey was saying then is that we need to start being proud of Africa. Not just your color, but Africa itself. You had to take pride in your race. Garvey saw how those veterans from the Great War came back with pride, walking around in their uniforms. So when you join the UNIA, you got a uniform. A military-style uniform. Do these guys look somehow ashamed or degraded? No, you can see the pride like coming out of their eyes through time. And then members of the UNIA would march and drill. And Garvey said one day, when they were ready, they would go help free Africa. So that's all this is not just so we can walk around in uniforms. One day we'll be ready to go free Africa.